record. And I will turn it right over to them. We're excited to kind of hear how this pilot has started. Goal here, I would love this to be interactive, kind of casual forum for discussion. If you have any questions about how this is going, kind of potential ways to implement this elsewhere. I know plastics recycling has been kind of a common topic across many of our members throughout this past year as we're trying to think through those tough pieces of equipment to recycle. So I'll turn it over and just let me know when you want me to skip to the next slide.
Oh, I can, if you want, I can share it if you want, or you can.
Either way, I've got it up.
Yeah, then yeah, definitely you can share that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm ready when you are.
Good to go.
Thank you, Abby. So this presentation is just going to be on implementing Dana-Farber's plastic recycling program from bolts to nuts, the start to the beginning to the end, and going to give some updates periodically from what we have done thus far, how we got to where we are, some of the buy-in, some of the help, and it's just strategies to promote our sustainable plastic waste management and improving upon that. Please move to the next slide. Introduction. Well, like I said, my name is Mike Capone, lab safety. No, sorry, lab safety. That's my old title. Manager of environmental compliance and sustainability. And I'm with Jessica, who is part of our Han lab on Dana 15, who was instrumental with this program and the launch of it. So without her help, we would not be where we are here. We are on the waste diversion subcommittee for our sustainability committee. So we work hand in hand very closely together, dealing with sustainability initiatives within Dana-Farber. So I appreciate her help on this as well. And like I said, without her, this would not have been as fluid as possible. So yeah, thank you. So the overview and purpose of this, we partnered with Polycarbon, but it's a company, we decided to work with a hyper-local company, someone that is based out of Massachusetts. They have a Norwell office, but a lot of their work gets done in this area. They actually have offices in California, Pittsburgh, here, all over the United States. But we wanted to work with a company that had a lower footprint, a smaller footprint than some of the larger ones. Dana-Farber's commitment to sustainability is very important, especially because it's aligned with the healthcare industry standards and regulations. But we have a responsibility here at Dana-Farber to promote sustainability from within. Some of our objectives, obviously, to reduce plastic, divert landfill waste was the largest one, in my opinion, and enhance environmental compliance and promote the sustainable culture. Without environmental stewards, without stewards of the environment, without people that are going to genuinely want to make a difference, this is not going to happen. People aren't just going to do it. Most people aren't just going to do this out of the goodness of their heart. They want to learn why, and I believe that promoting a culture within the Institute is going to go a long way. So the initiative supports Dana-Farber's operational goals to decrease landfill contributions and foster and promote environmental responsibility. Next slide, please.
Yeah, and
if you are familiar with labs, if you're familiar with research in general, you know that research facilities can produce up to more than 12 times the amount of waste in office spaces, which is a massive problem. They also generate 5.5 million metric tons of plastic waste each year. I got that directly from my Green Labs, pretty reputable source. But the issue is not only that, but how to combat that, how to deal with the overflow of plastics within our labs. And researchers, as soon as you have a conversation with them, I'd say the majority of them are interested in this topic. They want to know what they can do to help. They are interested in a lot of the young ones, a lot of the young individuals that we work with do care. I would say
there's someone in your office, or there's some other voice happening.
Yep, David's at my office.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, we share an office. Um, yeah, sorry. Did you guys get that last slide? Okay. Sorry about that. David. Oh, all good. So the researchers are motivated to reduce the waste, but a lot of them didn't know how. A lot of them didn't want, a lot of them didn't understand what was acceptable at Dana-Farber, what was a what was important to dispose of, and that's that was a big problem to figure out what was the heavy hitters, some of the large items. So next slide, please. Some of the challenges was lack of centralized recycling. We had about 5 different types of recycling containers or trash containers, Slim Jims, 5-gallon buckets. The receptacles were kind of endless here. Um, the environmental and sustainability risk, we don't want to be overfilling our landfills. We don't want to be combining incompatible waste streams. We want to have as clean as a waste stream as possible. Um, the staff confusion and contamination was a big one for us because sometimes people think if you're in a lab, all the material that comes out of it is going to be hazardous material, which is not necessarily the case. A lot of it is clean, usable, um, sterile plastic. So we found items that are going to be taking up large volumes, large spaces, not necessarily heavy, but just the amount that we go through. You can go to the next slide, please. When I started this program, I really wanted to get stakeholder engagement. So I engaged the environmental service group, environmental health and safety, which was me and a lot of some of my coworkers here, um, and LSO-led research teams to ensure teams alignment and buy-in for this program. Um, at the beginning stage, I think I have a slide later on the beginning stage of this, but we designed specifications for acceptable materials, like I mentioned in the previous slide, heavy hitting items, pipette tip boxes, um, media bottles, clean, empty bleach and alcohol bottles, things that 99% of the labs, I would say, go through on a regular basis. Um, the communication and training was a lot of legwork because I had to speak with each individual lab, and I'm still doing that as this progresses. But I go speak with the LSOs or at a lab meeting. For example, I went to a lab meeting in the Longwood Center last week and sat in front of 30 researchers and explained the program, explained what was acceptable, what was not. I helped them design the areas where the collection facilities or the collection vessels are going to be, somewhere where it's um, out of harm's way, but also in clear sight where they can walk by and see it with signage, with graphics. I actually designed some graphics with our sign shop. They're not at my desk right now, but I designed some signage so we can then reuse old trash cans as opposed to buying brand new cardboard boxes from this company. We used materials that we had on site. Um, and that promoted um, that not only promoted engagement with the staff because they already know they have trash, they have recycling here, um, but they also wanted to reduce some of the space that they had in their lab for all the additional trash and recycling that they didn't necessarily need. They had 7 or 8 different trash cans in their lab, but they didn't fill up 7 or 8 a day. So we found a nice little hole in the environmental service because they oversupply with trash cans in these labs sometimes, and oversupply with the big recycling bins that we necessarily don't need all of them. So we rehomed them and we repurposed them because Jessica will tell you these boxes are not cheap. When we started the pilot program in 3 floors, I was buying boxes of 10, which I believe 5 or 10, which were $400 something a piece. 400 something dollars for a box of 5 or 10. I forget what it was. This was 3 years ago. But it was super expensive to do this. And those were the mailback boxes. You can go to the next slide. So phased implementation. The pilot program started, I want to say 3 years ago now in 3 labs. And I started then buying more of these boxes and getting more labs involved, educating more floors. We started with a certain few floors in a building, and then we moved down and just snowball affected because some labs saw that other labs were doing it and they were interested. They wanted to get on board with it because I kept showing them the metrics, the data, the information from the recycling um, um, numbers that we were getting back. And it was pretty cool to see some of these key milestones achieved, like the first 1,000 pounds, the first 5,000 pounds. It was um, really impressive to people to see how much we have diverted from landfills and properly recycled and put back into a circular economy with this company. So when I finally got some funding from the from the Environmental Health and Safety Department, I rolled out a larger, I did a larger rollout. So as opposed to the mailback, the mailback boxes that we were buying at a premium, I invested in 5 large flex bins to be stored in our recycling room in near one of our loading docks. And those bins we get emptied once a month. They have in between 2 to 600 pounds of plastic in each bin. Um, Once a month, Polycarbon will come on site, pick them up, and deliver brand new ones. But that phase was a little tough to get to because there was a lot of connection to the mailback boxes, but then I ended up using those boxes as permanent ones as opposed to mailing them back. So a few labs have um, the mailback boxes that we kept. Some have the trash cans that we have already on site. Um, so we've been using a whole different slew of different boxes. So it um, hasn't been easy, but education is the key part here. Is just going to each individual lab and training them, saying this, you could use this X, Y, and Z. Um, but the educational materials that we've been giving, we do Q&A sessions with Polycarbon. I've had them come on site to do lab meetings with me. I've had tabling events. I'm actually having one tomorrow at the Longwood Center with um, someone from Polycarbon, Thomas, who I've been working with pretty closely. So we have classes, I would say, or educational classes that we can just sit and talk to them and explain the process. It usually is welcomed, and the information is really clear once we've been on site there. And the tracking system is pretty awesome. The dashboard that they have is third-party verified, which they give us a lot of really important numbers when it comes to the circular economy of plastic. What they're doing with the plastic, who they're selling it to, the carbon equivalencies. It's really impressive. But some of the challenges that we had initially was space constraints. I had to find a certain location that could withstand 5 flex bins, which they're basically cubic yard boxes. So we had, uh, as you could tell from just my office, space is at a premium here. So we had to find a location where it would work for everybody. Some of the other challenges was contamination. So that's why the educational piece was so important, was to explain to them what can go into here and what cannot, because we didn't want any contaminated waste streams, whether that's biological or chemical or,
Nice to know.
God forbid, hazardous material. So we wanted to make sure that the contamination was non-existent. So the signage was important for that, but also keeping it limited to a certain amount of items as opposed to every type of plastic that you can imagine, because some bottles that come in a lab may have come in contact with something that has been deemed hazardous. And we want to avoid that because the people that are picking this up are not hazmat trained, nor should they be, because we are trying to get clean lab plastic out of these labs. Some of the challenges.
Is there any sort of I don't know, liability sort of insurance concerns around that, or I'm curious.
No, there's nothing on our end
Yeah.
because we haven't crossed that bridge yet. We'll say
Yeah.
thankfully.
Yeah,
Well, we're not giving them anything that's biohazard.
yeah.
So
It's more
they have asked
contaminating.
us,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
they're like another fate, our ultimate goal. This company has actually asked us, like, they'll take our used tips. They'll take whatever hazardous stuff, but it has to be autoclaved in a certain
Oh,
certified way that we didn't have, or Mike was looking.
We don't have the money for it, really.
So that's still kind of like for the future for us, like if we could find a third party company that would, somehow treat that so they could take it. But right now, everything that you'll see at the end, we have some pictures of like what Mike's talking about, which items we chose. And none of them are contaminated with cells.
do you mind if I ask another question just before I don't want
Please.
to what a couple just things, just it helps me get my head around it a little bit because I feel like, especially for us, we're kind of on the outside of your internal operations, but roughly how many labs you talking to? I don't even know how many are on each of those floors in Longwood Center. And then also, do you have any sort of insights as regards getting sort of internal champions within each of those labs? You know what I mean? Was that kind of
Totally. Yeah, totally. So,
yeah,
the rollout that I started with, I kind of went top down from a building. So I started in Smith, worked my way from the 10th, 11th, 12th, or 12th, 11th, 10th, 9th, and so on. Worked my way down. But I also worked with lab safety officers, as you say, champions. So I had a list when I was running the lab safety side of things here at EHS. I have a list of lab safety officers. So I knew who they were. Plus, over the past 5 years that I've been here, I have had countless interactions with lab safety officers, whether that's from questions that they have of disposal considerations or just my regular lab safety inspections. So I knew who they were. That being said, we have 10 floors, 12 floors in Smith. We have 15 in Dana, but only 7 or 8 lab floors. I go floor by floor, lab by lab, lab safety officer by lab safety officer. But I have a list of lab safety officers that I know are interested that I kind of started with them as well, because some people I trusted with explaining it to their lab as opposed to me going to each individual person to teach them. So lab safety officers that I've had a rapport with, Jessica, for example, I full-heartedly trust Jessica to talk to her lab, which I still talk to her lab as well, but I think that she can control her lab's
I
employee.
monitor my whole floor. And I have to say some labs are good. It's just like Mike said, if like in the Meyerson lab, for example, they have a postdoc they have some people that are into it, and then they bring it up at lab meeting or point it out. Then there's another lab where I've told them I've tried being nice, I've tried yelling at them, I've tried all the different approaches, and they still can't. I mean, they're getting better, but you do have to find people that care, and then but once it becomes their new routine, then people do it. And that's what I had been telling Mike from the beginning. And I was really afraid of the contamination thing, of the whole thing's going to fail if we don't have constraints on the behavior, so that's just something to think about. Like, we've expanded the amount of items people can put in, and it's still, I know I can put a lot more in. I know they'll take more. Mike and I went to the place and saw their whole process, but I'm not telling everyone because then we'll get contaminated, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I don't want to take that risk
yeah,
just
no, that's
just yet.
interesting. Yeah, so to do with, it sounds like you're being appropriately cautious about how quickly you roll out the full extent of it.
With the capabilities, the capacity
Yeah.
that they can handle. Yeah, totally.
Because it relies on individuals at the end of the day making individual decisions and paying attention to what they're doing when they're recycling.
Yeah, and I worked in the hazardous waste industry for a while, and I was taught not to trust anybody. And I know that this is not that same industry,
Right.
but someone says, "Oh, that's inert. That's not dangerous. That's been decontaminated." You don't trust that until you do it yourself. And
Yeah.
I don't want to. So we've had 2 or 3 emails back and forth with incompatible things, like we had a Coke bottle in there, or
Piece of metal. I think
a piece
there's
of
some
metal. Yeah, something random, but we don't know how it got in there. I don't know if it was someone in my recycling room, because other people have access like Stericycle, um, or Shred It, I should say, Shred It. But also like it could have just fallen from somewhere. I mean, I'm not putting blame on anyone specifically. I don't know where it came from. Um, but yeah, that has happened. We have gotten deficiencies, like I believe twice in the past
Well, the
four,
other
three,
one
three
was for
years.
our liquid. We
Uh,
didn't, there's the items that go in, but they're also supposed to be empty of liquid,
mhm.
rinsed. So I think that we got dinged for not all our bottles were rinsed or something like that.
Yeah. Um, Coordination and collaboration are key. Cross-departmental communication, um, dealing with environmental service and getting them on board was a huge contributing factor here, because without them, I would be still going to pick up bins and bring it to our recycling room. With our environmental service group that we have here, they're doing rounds every day for trash and recycling. So we added that to it because they go down to the same location. They have the same hoppers, the same bins. They can put the trash bags into the bin. They can take the same thing and take it down the service elevators. Getting them on board was awesome. Having the ability to reach out to your environmental service group, because at Dana-Farber, environmental service is different than environmental health and safety. Environmental service does the legwork, the dirty work sometimes, the custodial work. So having them on board to do the large moves, the large pickups, the deliverables, it was very important to get them on board. Next slide, please. So this is a little bit outdated, even though I sent it to you like a couple days ago. We have 15,000, over 15,000 pounds of lab plastics recycled. Jessica has been spearheading the nitrile gloves. And I believe her and maybe one or two other labs are purchasing back materials from this company that we've already built a stock of plastic with. The gloves, I will say I would like to expand upon because every lab uses gloves, but I don't, like I said, I don't know if I trust people to do the right thing here because sometimes gloves do come in contact with biologicals. Sometimes gloves do get in touch with hazardous materials. I don't want to get anyone hurt. I don't want to get anyone sick. So I think that one will come with time, but I just have to, maybe it's me just letting go and saying, you guys, I trust you, but I don't know if I want to do that just yet. You can go to the next slide, please. This is just another, um, you know, just a different graphic of some of the fresh water conserved, the sulfur dioxide, the nitrogen, O2, the emissions reduction. It's one of the slides that or one of the perks of working with this company is they give us good graphics that explain what we are conserving, what we're saving, what we're reducing. Next slide, please. Um, Quantitative success metrics, like I just discussed, the plastic volume diverted, the cost savings. The cost savings is tough because they don't necessarily reflect immediately on this program, but we are reducing what we're getting shipped out from our Republic contract, from our general waste and our trash and our recycling. So we are saving money in a sense with them, from them. The environmental impact, obviously, this significantly reduces our organization's carbon footprint, so we're happy to do that. Sorry, I'm getting a call from one lab. I'm so sorry. Um, if just give me 1 second.
You can go to the next slide, which I think is mine. Yeah, so I wanted to even just when I was hearing Mike talking, I was thinking my role, I'm a lab manager for I work for the COO of Dana-Farber. So that was just when Mike was talking about buy-in, it helps that I work for the the vice president of the hospital because he has a lot of power to support these programs or not. And so, and I also, it's good for us to be a pilot lab because then we can, kind of lead by example. So, as Mike said, these are what the polycarbon bins look like, the boxes if you purchase them. And we did that. I was one of the pilot labs, for the first phase. And so, I was able to just buy boxes for my lab, and Mike found money here and there for other labs. But what's been key for us is, as Mike said, is to make it more part of the institutional workflow, right? With part of the trash pickup. So in my lab, I'm still using these boxes, but like Mike said, you can use whatever you want. You can use, the gray trash, but you can use whatever you want. You could even use current recycling containers if they're, labeled for this or allocated specifically for this program, because our trash guys are coming through and dumping it into a big bin that they roll through anyway. So when you meet with Polycarbon, initially they wanted us to use their things and we were sending them in. But really at a certain point, Mike and I were like, well, we don't even have to talk to them about how we're collecting it because Polycarbon doesn't see this part anymore. They just go to the wherever Mike's flex bins are, which are I'm sorry, we don't have a picture of those, but they're just like giant milk crates, basically.
They're nothing special. They're cubic yard boxes, flex bins,
Yeah, so
Gaylord totes, whatever you want to call them. They're
it's a giant plastic bin that gets filled with this plastic stuff. And then what do they use, a forklift to dump it, Mike?
They use a pallet jack to get it on their truck, and then a pallet jack to get it off. And then they empty it at their warehouse, and they segregate it at their facility.
But they bring it back. They bring the flex bin back to you, or
they bring empty ones. They're folded down, so they take up less space. They bring condensed ones.
Return them. They return they take the bin and they return the bins.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily at the same time, but they have flex bins that they drop off and they pick up. So they reuse the flex bins as well. They're not.
Yeah. So, my broader point is that, and I don't even really know all of you guys' roles, but if you're in the lab or you're trying to roll this out in the lab, you can give some leeway there, but you want the facilities people to be able to recognize what they're picking up, right? That it's that category. So that's another part of one thing that I realized is, and this kind of hits the topic of people like, wanting to feel good, fake recycling, basically. Okay. So what I realized is we have all these blue and green, the traditional recycling bins in the lab. But after working with Mike, I was like, okay, true or false? 0 lab plastic is getting recycled unless it's through Polycarbon. So that basically meant in my lab anyway, the only thing that should be going to those recycle bins is paper and cardboard. That's, functionally, because this isn't the city of Boston. This isn't your condo or your house or your apartment, right? So what I learned through getting on the committee here is just what I said, to repeat, that no plastic from the lab was getting recycled. It's getting trashed. So it's all fake action to put it in those bins. So, I removed a lot of those. We had a lot of that capacity. And so it made it easy for people to throw stuff in. So I removed a lot of those and just kept telling people paper and cardboard and maybe some glass, right?
Because that does get recycled. It's single stream recycling does get done at Dana-Farber, but not to the scale that we would like it to get done, and not to the scale that it should be.
But it comes back to the education part that, people do feel crappy about all the pollution we're putting into the world. But also, it took a lot of me repeating it to be like, you're not helping by doing that. By putting a plastic bag in the paper bin, you're actually hurting our whole process. Mm-hmm. And if you feel bad that stuff is going in the trash, that's another topic. But to force people to put plastic in the trash, it upsets them, honestly. When I'm like, nope, that's trash. Nope, that's trash. And they're like, what? And it's like, again, if you feel bad about that, that's good. And we can work with that. But taking away the stuff that kind of placates the feelings is an important component. So in this picture, what you can see, so in the one of the slides Mike showed, it showed the different kinds of stuff polycarbon takes. So here I have the middle two bins are for the plastics, the hard plastics, and I'll show you that signage on the next slide. And then on the right, you can see I have the nitrile glove bin. Those I've purchased out of lab funds. And I have 2 or 3 boxes spread throughout the lab, like key locations. So this one is right when people come out of tissue culture, right? They take off their gloves. So this is another thing as a lab manager, I have to make it easy for people. So, even I see like, okay, I see a lot of gloves are still ending up in this trash container. And so I just like put a bin there, right? Like obviously that's a walk through space. Instead of like yelling at people to put them wherever, I just put a bin where they are. And then they'll, that kind of thing. And they take a really long time to fill up. So I think it is about $40 a box, but that includes the shipping. And it really takes like 3 months we have a
'Cause
lab of 10
you could just
people.
push them down further and further. It's like the stretchy film plastic that we're starting with too. It just condenses.
So I was able to get some other labs on the floor to do that. It does depend on if they have funding for that. I don't know. I've never thought about, I don't discriminate about what work people have been doing because we don't have radioactivity here. So all our gloves go in there. And then all the way on the left, you see a bin where I've written flexible plastic. So that is, I don't know if any of you have worked with Trex or like the stuff the supermarkets take, but this is a little more complicated because unfortunately not all plastic bags are the same. But it's for like the stretchy ones versus crinkly. So if you think about a Ziploc bag versus the plastic that comes in if you buy flowers, for example, that's so but bubble wrap can go in here. So I've just been doing this. I filled up 1 box so far with my lab and I've honestly they've been pretty good about it. But this one's a little harder because you actually have to think about the bag. And so sorry, my speech is so long, but this kind of loops back to where we are now is through doing this program, it puts me in a position where when vendors are trying to sell me stuff, I can say, what kind of packaging does it come in? Because this is what I have capacity to recycle, So it kind of shifted the conversation to different questions that I thought was kind of cool. And just one last thing about those questions we can ask is when Mike and I toured the facility, and this is just kind of a broader thing. If you zoom out, is okay. We've sent 15,000 pounds of plastic, and they're pelletizing it, and I believe they're doing it, and they're selling it to people to recycle. But what we can do as customers is to our vendors, we can just keep asking, like, how much is post-consumer content? Like, how much of your product is post-consumer material? And the more we ask that, the more it'll push them to buy from companies like Polycarbon. And Polycarbon actually asked us to do that. Like they said, that's something that you can actively do.
Yeah, so we do suggest to our researchers to advocate towards buying more post-consumer products, things that are using recycled plastic. You can reach out to your vendor, say Fisher, Thermo, whoever it might be, and request that you have better packaging or different product that is more eco-conscious.
Well, and we can be specific and say, we want type 2 plastic bags or, So if you go to the next slide, you can see like the specific items that we chose. This is for the solid plastics. So I think Mike said for our pilot, we started with just the tip boxes.
Then we escalated to media bottles, empty and clean media bottles. We always ask them to leave the tops off. So if there is any residual liquid, it evaporates. Alcohol bottles, you can leave the tops off of that. That will evaporate in no time. And then bleach bottles. And then some of the filter bottles and caps, but it cannot be biohazard.
Yeah. So earlier when Mike was talking and we were talking about the contamination part, this is where, you have to be really thoughtful about who the audience is. So yeah, the tip boxes were really straightforward, and traditionally, I've been in the lab 27 years, and there was tip box recycling when I was a student, so that's not really new. But, if you work in the lab, the number one PET bottles, the plastic bottles and caps, we go through those like crazy, right? PBS, FBS, water, all the
Trips.
media, trypsin, all that stuff, all the supplements for media. Are there lab people here? No?
Maybe in previous
Anyway, it's a
careers.
lot. It's a lot, and it's a standard thing that everyone can identify those bottles. Yeah, the gallon jugs we learned about are actually really valuable plastic, like milk jugs at home, and then what the ethanol bottles, those are really high quality and actually purchased. Like when Mike and I toured the Boston City facility, we learned that milk jug plastic, they have a human picking those out. It's valuable enough that they pay a human to pick those out. The bleach bottles aren't on my chart, but then yeah, with the filters and the tops, we found out about that because those are just filtering sterile stuff usually. And we checked with them, and they can take that even with the filter, because the first part of their process is just grinding everything up. And they use this thing, it actually was developed to sort rice, which I find amazing that every grain of rice is like sorted for you. But they use that so
It's a blower with a camera
yeah,
on it, and it just shoots out high pressure air to divert colored plastic into certain areas and different
it sorts it
qualities.
by air puffing it.
It's cool.
So it'll get rid of the paper from the filter is basically the point I'm trying to make from that. Um, so this is a lot of material, but you might say, okay, what about tube? It seems like none of you guys are in the lab, but there's a ton of other plastic that is 1, 2, 5, or 6 that I'm not encouraging people to put in because it just gets a little too crazy, right? Like, because tubes are much more likely to have cells in them, or I can't really expect people to wash out their tubes, right? To rinse out the bottle is one thing.
Or chemical bottles that they may be RCRA empty or DOT empty, but there's potential residual in some of these chemical bottles.
Yeah, so I personally have a bag where I put caps, and I just because I'm so personally distraught about the environment. So as you saw, there's room to do more, but at an institutional level, this is what we're currently doing. So thanks for listening to all that, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Nitrile, they just have to be nitrile gloves.
Jessica, thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, sorry, by way of clarification, I'm VP for Area Planning and Development here at the Longwood Collective, and so I oversee a bunch of different programs. Abby is our sustainability lead and coordinator, and so I'm very eager to get this presentation in whatever form out and information about this vendor that you've been working with, and also I think these details about how you work with the labs and some of the hurdles and potentially the costs involved will be good for us to try to get out to other folks, so we have the ability to hopefully reach the other institutions in Longwood specifically. We're the organization that represents the Longwood institutions. So
Yeah, one thing I'd like to work on, even just this is the first time Mike and I have presented together like this, and I think we can do better at, and I don't even know that we have this data yet, but I think people would really like to see like how much have we diverted from the landfill and how any financial projections of that. But I don't know that we have that, and it's still a little bit early in the program.
yeah, no, and that's fine. I agree. And I feel like this is something we should revisit. I think these things take a while, right? It's sort of culturally what gets accepted on a lab by lab basis. And I really want to, I know we've had fewer people attend this time, but I think we should try to reach folks again and have some of these conversations.
Yeah.
I think so that the labs can understand what's needed, you're exactly like you're saying, what are the upfront costs and You know, what is it like working with this particular vendor? Because I think our role here, Abby and mine, is really to make sure we get this information out there. We are not experts in this area. I'm actually a transportation planner by training, but we have all the contacts for the people that run all the labs in the district. Hopefully, it's fairly up to date, so we can really get this out there. And I'm sure it would be helpful to your program too if you got more of a critical mass and other institutions involved.
Yeah, there are a bunch of institutions involved already. Beth
Okay,
Israel, Brigham. I know that they are doing it. I know BU is doing it too on a smaller scale.
great,
But
great.
yeah, it's definitely not a new company. Well, new, I'd say newer, but they've been around the Longwood area for quite some time now. But
Gotcha.
I think that we have some of the larger
Yeah.
buy-in.
Yeah, it sounds like you've done an amazing job. I really impressive.
I guess I would say too, just about when we're working with other institutes of, I mean, and this isn't, I'm a research scientist, so this isn't my like, this might be naive, but I would say the more we can standardize what the institutes are doing, it just seems like it would be better. Even you move to a new city, or even like Boston's different from Cambridge and different.
Yeah,
So even just for all kinds of purposes, communication, staff, the people picking it up, like I think
yeah.
the more we can kind of be somehow streamlined, that might be helpful.
Well,
And then
that's a great idea maybe for a future session then, is like sort of working on like a protocol or a list of like, if you want to set this program up in your lab, this is really what you should follow. And eventually you can turn it into, like you say, a set of guidelines. I
yeah,
mean,
because then it can be mimicked, and then it's easy for polycarbon, right? People can kind of plug into the protocol we make.
Jessica, for what it's worth, I'm just trying to help us all connect the dots here because we're operating in different spaces. So the executive committee that my boss runs, the CEO of Longwood Collective, has Dr. Hahn on it. And so I meet with Dr. Hahn every 2 or 3 months and
Okay.
present present projects to him. I'm not saying that this is necessarily, because it sounds like he already obviously is aware of it, but I'm just trying to we
Oh,
have
well,
the
it's
ability
great,
to,
but that's what I mean
yeah,
about like if he's over there and then he's like, "Oh, that's what Jessica's working on."
yeah.
No, this is my side project. This isn't what I do for
No,
business.
exactly.
This is
Right.
what I just said, can I have permission to be on the sustainability committee? But, but he trusts me, right? And he knows that I'm doing it. And so if he hears about it in that space, he's more likely to be supportive of it.
And
And
then we can
that's
get
what,
knowledge to others too. And I'm meeting with the strategic planning committee. That's my committee next week. And so that the VPs for that, Lisa Hogarty from Children's Hospital, Wendy Gettleman
Mhm.
from Dana, Jared Dorr from BI. So again, where there are opportunities for us to sort of engage at multiple levels with the institutions, we try to do that. So, I just think this should be the beginning of an ongoing conversation around this, and we're here to facilitate and try to help the flow of information.
Whatever you can do to get Wendy on board, further on board, do it. Because Wendy's
Okay.
my boss's boss, but she's been great support. She's helped us out get some funding. So I know she's on our side.
I mean, that's great. And another thing, I don't want to overpromise because it's really Abby leads these programs, but we are in the grant space and we go after grants. So we can also help support grant applications. We've just got a bunch of different grants from the state for various sustainability initiatives. They're not to do with internal operations, they're more external projects, but we got $100,000 grant from the city. We got another $50,000 from the state for some of the transportation things that we do. So anyway, I'm thrilled to have this
well, no,
conversation.
yeah, I'm thrilled too because, Mike always, you know, I don't want to say obviously I'm into it, but I just get kind of in a bog where there's just so much volume and, the more we can make it kind of a standard practice.
Yeah.
And yeah, just the things you said of if we make it so people don't feel like they have to reinvent the whole program, they can just jump on or plug in. Um, I think it'll really push it in the right direction. So that's exciting to hear that from you.
I should let Lisa Tornatore, I see written comments, Lisa.
Yeah, there's a few things in the chat. Let's let me know if you have it, if you have volume or say anything.
Just want to share that Boston Medical Center, Anna Goldman, is running, she's a medical doctor running their sustainability committee, has been working with Takeda Pharmaceuticals to meet climate goals to reduce plastics overall. They presented at the Climate Beacon conference about a month or so ago, maybe 2 months now. And it presented on a really impressive waste audit. So just wanted to share that there's some good work happening elsewhere around Boston. I think there could be, if more and more of our institutions are looking at waste reduction and waste diversion, especially from labs and hospitals, does that change the marketplace in the local region, right? I think that's a broader conversation that we can have as a group.
No, that's right. And I think one of our jobs is to try to get the right people in the room and get them to come and so we can have those conversations. So I think that's great. We've got our notes, and maybe we could invite Boston Medical Center to come in and speak to our group as well. I think our challenge is that we rely on the expertise of our members to tell us what they need. Abby and I do not run a lab. Our organization does all the shuttles in the district, and I'm an urban planner, but we know that we have work to do in the sustainability realm. So anyway, this is really helpful.
I mean, we haven't even really touched the PPE component, but that's a big one. Even just with you saying, how can we shift the marketplace?
Right.
I mean, that's what I was kind of alluding to is like, okay, how do we get people to buy the plastic and make the stuff we're buying out of it? And like really make it a circular thing. And so that also brings us back to like, if have these different institutes together, we're a much stronger force to make those kind of requests.
The buying power specifically.
Yeah, and if we're united in what we're asking for, even if we focus that to like one or two priorities, that comes back to like the whole, you don't want to contaminate the waste stream or lose your whole project for 10% extra stuff. But I'd be really excited about that, seeing some kind of circularity, some kind of response to this action.
And I think that's our last slide. Well, we have one more really good slide after this one.
I wonder if, sorry, and I'm just throwing out, this is about as high as it goes. I'm throwing out ideas here. I mean, I wonder if a core group of us, would it be helpful, do you think, to put out a shortish survey focused to our distribution list, to our Green Lab leaders and sustainability leaders, so that we can understand the most useful sort of aspects of this? Because I think that the difficulty for us, again, is that all of the institutions are at different levels of commitment or involvement with these types of program. And if we get some better information back, we might be able to target our efforts. I suspect that this is a good thing to focus on, but it would be good to kind of have a few more big institutions confirm that this is something that they're struggling with, and we could maybe have a few different themes there, because I know there's been some topics that have come up repeatedly.
I think that would be helpful. I do think that would be very helpful. I think that getting, like Lisa said, getting Anna on board, Avery, Polardi, getting these individuals that are in the sustainability field, that are decision makers for their institutes, for their hospitals, those are the people I truly think could make a difference.
And I mean, you can do a survey, but I can tell you right now, every building and every lab has this problem, right? Like I'm at the dentist and they're not recycling their nitrile gloves. Everywhere I go, I ask, oh, do you have this program? That nobody does. Like I said, I've been in the lab my entire career, 27 years, same topic over and over, right? So, show me a place that doesn't have a bunch of trash that could be diverted, and I'll buy you dinner.
I think then it's a matter of like understanding where are the major challenges to going forward with it. Is it funding? Is it just kind of institutional and cultural
Yeah,
norms?
Safety.
And
I would say
safety, yeah.
it's primarily a lot has to do with safety and the culture around safety in laboratories. Not wanting, as Mike said, you don't want to get people ill or injured. And that is number one priority in laboratories. It always has been.
Well,
And
one cool thing is polycarbon will take it, right? So up until now, we didn't have anyone that would take it, right? So that didn't even have to do with the scientists, that had to do with just the
The vendor.
infrastructure, right? So
I
the
mean,
guys,
people would take it and use and consider it trash. They wouldn't consider a value behind it. They wouldn't consider it
they
recyclable.
weren't
They would,
recycling it.
yeah, they would consider it trash.
And maybe at one of the institutes, there is a autoclave that is certified to autoclave the waste that we want to get rid of. But just having polycarbon was started by two med students that dropped out of med school because they were so grossed out by the waste, and they started this company.
interesting.
So, that in itself is like a big game changer, that this is even available to us and that they're willing to take this stuff. So I guess that's where I was partly coming from. But I hear you about the survey, like maybe there's a place where they don't have this kind of plastic. They want to focus on PPE and nitrile gloves, right? Like more the
Yeah.
doctor's
Definitely.
office.
I think it's that, and it's also just that from where I'm sitting, which is a different place, much more sort of 20,000 foot level, we do put out these agendas, but we don't get the attendance always. And so I just want to make sure that we're putting our eggs in the right basket. Like if they're already using this vendor, then maybe there's a different aspect we need to sort of focus on. That I think that's all. But I think this is a great presentation, by the way, and so helpful. And I just want to make sure the right people get it, so that, and then we can engage, Dr. Hahn's level if needed, just to get more attention on it. So. Like sometimes the barrier is just like knowledge, or maybe they have too many labs like the one you mentioned where they just don't have the culture. And so then it's something, to me, that's more like you were suggesting, Jessica, where it might be beneficial to have a Dr. Hahn or someone say, we have got to do, any research lab using this amount of these materials needs to be part of this program, and there might be an opportunity for us to kind of put a bit of more pressure from the C-suite down to the research labs.
Yeah, and it comes from both sides.
Both directions.
I don't have the power to tell the Meyerson lab you have to do the nitrile
Right.
glove. But when their postdocs saw we were doing it, they brought it up to him and said, the Hahn lab is already doing this. We want to do it. And he said yes. Right. So the more pressure we can put from all angles
Exactly.
is
Mhm.
great. And whenever I get a technician or a young person that's an eager beaver, I'm so relieved. Or I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I have a buddy in the lab to
Exactly.
look out for that. So
Yeah. That's
like
great.
I said, it takes us pushing from every angle we can.
Great. Thank you, guys.
yeah, thank you. Congrats.
Very cool to learn more about. So thank you all.
Cool.
I will make sure to send this out. We're getting right on time here. And then if you want to forward it to anybody else, now that we have this kind of in one spot, feel free to do that. And hopefully we'll connect with Mike and Jessica again to see if we can do this in potentially another format or with another group that needs to.
Yeah, happy to do so.
Yeah.
I think it's a good
Yeah.
thing to have an open dialogue.
And we'll add more pictures. I think we should add in more pictures of our actual, the logistical process. We can put the flex bins and so people can see what that looks like.
I think that's a great idea. And if you do have any, sorry if I missed this, but I think any sort of upfront cost considerations or additional how this gets thought of in an operations budget or something might be good.
Okay. Were you asking the price? Were you asking what the price was that we have for this program?
I guess, yeah, however you measure it, whether,
It
because
was-
I don't.
It was $21,000 for a year of service
For,
well, technically now it's going to be 42,000 because I have another 5 bins in another building. So 5 bins in one building was 21,000.
okay,
5 bins in another building. So 10 bins once a month pickup. So 10 bins once a month. Yeah. It's not.
So basically those 5 bins have been able to produce.
That's just the
or,
lab
like,
plastic.
collect
That's
That's
just
just the
Yeah.
lab plastic. So
just the lab plastic, yeah.
like I'm saying, if these hospitals wanted to do PPE, that'd be, that's another thing. We are doing great, and I'm proud of us, and I'm really happy people are interested. But as you can see from this chart, we still have all these categories we're not even really touching yet.
yeah,
And I mean, PPE is huge,
yeah,
in the hospitals, because that includes even like the pads, I think.
Yeah.
like, sit on, their disposable gowns, the masks.
the wraps the wraps that those
So-
come in.
It's a lot. So yeah, we can add in more numbers, and then yeah, I'll talk with Mike offline too. But if we can start to get some metrics on like, the offset, that would convince leadership too.
I don't need to get too into this, but how does that get paid for? Like, whose budget does that hit?
Ours, the environmental health and safety, the environmental service, environmental facilities management, real estate group.
And is that like assessed on all the labs, or something like that, or how does it?
No,
Just it's a
a service.
organizational Dana-Farber wide
yes.
service.
correct.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, trying to get people to pay for it was the most interesting part. That's why it took a little bit of time for me to
Yeah.
get this off the ground running.
Yeah,
Then I
And
guess
I
would there be a noticeable reduction in like the waste pickup from, I guess, being reduced by 15,000 pounds that were just put into trash before, but is there any now cost reduction in?
So we're doing studies on that now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head because Republic is awful with waste data. So you know how I feel about them.
Yes.
And also, I mean, this is a little bit granular, but it's pushed my lab to, we've made decisions about the products we're buying. So even with the tip boxes, because the boxes fill up kind of fast, actually, because it's so much plastic. So we've switched to these kind of wafer tips for some applications, or I guess I'm just saying there are secondary and even tertiary questions
Yeah.
and behaviors that come out of doing this.
Yeah.
So, I hadn't fully expected that, but it's kind of cool to see how it snowballs.
yeah. Awesome. All right, well, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Abby.
Yeah,
Thank you guys.
nice to meet you, Jessica.
You too. I'll see you guys another time, I hope.
Yeah,
Yes.
bye.
Bye.